At the height of the 20th century, many changes had taken place in American society. Things like prohibition, organized crime, the outlook of the female image, and of course the conflict of evolution and religion all came into a new light during this modern-day Renaissance. During this time period, an event which would soon be called the Scopes Monkey Trial came to light when the state of Tennessee put a ban on the teaching of evolutionary ideas in schools. In spite of these laws, a man named John Thomas Scopes challenged this law and sparked a major event in history. Figures from both the religious and scientific communities stepped forward to defend their points of view. The most notable were Scopes and Clarence Darrow, a fierce defense attorney with a widely known reputation at that time. The trial itself, in fact, was more of a social event than anything. It was held on July 21st in 1925. Instead of a typical court case layout, the event had more of a debate background. Two sets of people, evolutionary thinkers and the religious fundamentalists, pitted against each other to prove one side of being faulty. State Representative John W. Butler, also head of the WCFA, or World's Christian Fundamentalist Association, was the main speaker for the religious side of the argument. For 7 days and 2 full hours or so, this trial went on, with both sides firing off points and steadily dishing out rebuttals at the opposing side's attacks. In the end, the verdict that evidence was unclear and dismissive was brought forward and the trial ended. This specific event was the initial beginning to modern debates between religion and Scientologists, and the overall friction between the two groups. To this day, we still have a diverse culture with many spiritual views and scientific ones, but along with those views, we still have arguments and debates all the same. Going back in time past the 20th century, the world was primarily run by church thinking and religious ideals. However, as time went on, that enforcement soon faded and the public became open to a more relaxed way of living. The primary jump to this attitude started in the 20s and continued to grow as the decades went by. The Scopes Monkey Trial was just one incident. It was fueled by many smaller ones that eventually led to what happened that summer in 1925. One of the events that built up to the trial was the Butler Act. This was a law enforced in the state of Tennessee and strictly enforced so that the current education system was Darwin theory free. But this act was broken by Scopes shortly after it was penned, and for that, it was brought to the public eye. Like any argument, there are two forces that oppose each other. In this case, it was the Christian fundamentalists versus the Darwin evolutionists. Both believed that their practices were correct and that the other was false in some way. Although both groups of speakers had completely different beliefs, they were also similar in some aspects. Both sides were strongly supporting their own opinions and severely damaging the integrity of the other. Though many people were in favor of the fundamentalists, spectators were also quite curious as to what the evolutionists were saying. This brings us to our final point, the lasting effects of the Scopes Monkey Trial. What first seemed to be nothing more than an isolated incident soon turned into a national debate with headlines across the country informing the people of America on the shift that was happening in their education system and with their spiritual views at the time. To this day, Christians, Catholics, Muslims, and many other religious groups still combat the thinking of scientists and Darwinists alike. Though the conflict isn't brought to light as it had been so many years ago, it is still existent in the first decade of the 21st century. Most of society today has a free thought as to what they believe regarding existence and origin. Among the people of the world, there are Jews, Christians, Catholics, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, Scientologists, atheists, and many more that all have their separate way of thinking. Most historians believe that their diversity in beliefs is mainly attributed to that milestone trial that took place in the summer of 1925.